$9 billion, Liam. That is the current floor to buy a Super Bowl champion. The Seattle Seahawks were on the block this past weekend, somewhere between 9 and 11 billion. And Coastal Ventures actually wins the bid and puts down a record-breaking announcement going toward the sale of a NFL team. The NFL record set in 2023 was 605. So in 36 months, the ceiling just moved up by 50%. And that's the story of this entire week. Everybody in sports is trying to find the ceiling. What is this stuff actually worth, and who gets to decide who gets to buy it? In Las Vegas, there is no NBA team, no building revenue, no roster, no ticket sales, and two separate billionaire groups are in a knife fight currently over the right one to create it. One of them targeting $12.5 billion in assets, and one of those groups has former players on the ownership side of the table. And that's not a side note on this show. That's the whole show. That's what we talk about all the time, is players coming to the ownership table. So kudos there. The Big 12 sold the jersey off of every athlete in the conference to Monster Energy, $20 million a year, about $1 million per school. And half the industry thinks that they kind of got screwed. And then there's the one number going the wrong way out of all this, and that's FIFA. FIFA built the most sophisticated ticket pricing machine sports has ever seen. Real-time dynamic pricing, their own resale market, 15% on every flip, and with the biggest matches still in play, prices on the final just fell about 50% in a week. The trophy assets keep going up, and the thing a normal fan actually buys is the only price coming down. 5 markets, 5 attempts to find the ceiling. One of them cracked, and let's get into it on this week's Playbooks and Portfolios with your hosts, Sean and Liam Clifford. Back in the saddle, brother. Back in the saddle.
We are. Bunch of talk.
You're back. Yeah, you're back. You're back in Cincinnati. I can see you back in the original setup, which is awesome.
Yeah, the OG setup back in Cincinnati. Was on the road for a good close to a month, but we're back. Travel's settling down, and things are settling down in general on our side, and kind of had a nice day on Monday to jump into things. And so excited to get into the pod and get back into the normal routine here.
Yeah, I've been moving around too. We missed our first week based off of vacation. Everybody's got to take it. We are now going to be pretty much week by week. I don't think we'll have anything missing other than maybe a potential Monday due date of the baby. That would be the only chance of missing anything. But excited to be back. Lots to talk about. The sports ecosystem continues to boom with headline news across the board, starting with the price that cracked, and that's FIFA's dynamic pricing reality check here. Resale prices for the remaining seats are down 50% in recent days as the knockout stages finally run out. And the cheapest seat resale average for the July 19th final fell from $11,621 to $10,329 in a week, off of a June 22nd peak of $12,483. And first and foremost, first World Cup using a real-time dynamic pricing, plus FIFA's own resale market taking a 15% fee. Little pricey, in my opinion, but listings ran 4 to 6 figures, single seats posted at $2 million, one as high as $11.5 million. I would love to see that seat. Holy cow, what a suite that would be. And the most lucrative World Cup ever. Revenue is almost at $11 billion. Match day ticketing plus hospitality is projected up to $3 billion versus when we were in Qatar, which we were just there. I must say, when we were over in Qatar, it was an amazing spectacle. They must have put on an absolute show when it came to the FIFA World Cup, but $3 billion versus $950 million in Qatar. So a monumental jump. And the U.S. Chamber of Commerce publicly cited it as proof dynamic pricing works, even as ESPN and the Globe and everybody else framed it as pricing out the real fans. So there's a lot to talk about with this one. I think the FIFA obviously is doing their best to generate as much revenue in a very short amount of time. It is a spectacle, to say the least. But Liam, what's your thoughts on adding this dynamic pricing internally to then go out to the fans? It obviously worked to an extent. We're seeing the highest revenue ever grossed, but Is it something that can continue on, or do you see this kind of taking a sidetrack from here on out?
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. And as we kind of look at how the World Cup's gone, I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago on the podcast where they were struggling a little bit early during kind of the earlier games before they got into knockout play. And then it obviously ramped up. And we talked for a while on last week's episode talking about how unbelievable the World Cup games have been and how fun they've been to watch and how crowded and packed the stadiums have been. And then now kind of back to the same conversation that we had a couple weeks ago where they're maybe potentially not necessarily struggling to fill seats, but the prices are fluctuating at a crazy way. And I think ultimately, and this is my opinion, but I think what kind of the reason it's happened is when you have the World Cup in a country like the United States of America, and then the US gets knocked out, and then on top of that, Mexico gets knocked out, and all of the neighboring kind of areas that people would be coming to the games to watch for are now eliminated. That's where now we probably see less and less people being interested to actually go in person to watch the games rather than just sitting at home and watching them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I think when you have dynamic pricing, you can start to kind of struggle if the country that you're having the World Cup or whatever the sporting event is in, they are not in it anymore. That's where you might struggle to start to fill seats or get the tickets bought, and that's where the prices might have to drop in order to do so. So that's my opinion. I don't know if you have a different angle, but that's kind of why I'm thinking and the reasoning behind why the ticket prices have gone the way they've gone. Obviously, like we said, when the U.S. was in it and the World Cup was at its peak a few weeks ago, and at least specifically in our country, everybody was so rallied behind it and engaged in watching it, it would have been a different story. And now we're sitting here talking about this in a completely different light. What are your thoughts, Sean?
I mean, if you see the U.S. continue on, I think that this might be the most monumental event ever created. If they would have, won that game, I do think that overall this was a huge win for the soccer world. I think that this was the first time, and it makes sense. I mean, you're in the superpowers homeland. You have an opportunity to get every single media outlet, and you know how much sports means to the United States. It is really the backbone of a lot of communities. You see it across the entire country. It was really cool too, just for me personally, like just getting involved with a little bit of FC Cincinnati stuff. There was an FC Cincinnati guy on the team, which is amazing to watch, and it makes you follow the story. And I think that we talk about this a lot on this podcast of when it comes to fandom and when it comes to getting people involved, it's very important to tell that story and actually show the beauty of the progression from where they came from, having the backing of a town or a city or a community, and just getting that out in the best way, shape, or form. We've talked about that with women's sports and the progression, how they could potentially continue to rise, being able to show some really cool stories, big payouts for some of these girls. So overall, I think FIFA has done a really good job. I do think that this dynamic pricing is always going to be tricky, especially as stories go up and then stories sadly then fall. But I do think more than anything, one of our producers, Max Rains, his brother, I don't know if you saw Louis Rains, actually, shout out to Louis and the Rains family, but Louis went to the Argentina game and I saw his story talk about just a spectacle. It must have been really, really cool to be there. I know a bunch of guys that have went to these games. Jordan Love, friend of the pod, he was also at a game. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to be there to experience it. I'd have to imagine that every single person that has sat in those seats would say that they've enjoyed their time watching the FIFA World Cup. But when you get these pricing structures involved, it is going to test a lot of fandom just because now how do tickets get resaled, and really it's the resale marketplace that is usually the place that's going to spike and drop and have the most change. Obviously when tickets come out, they're just going to be bought. It's part of the nature of it all, and people have to make their money in a bunch of different ways. But I do think overall, super excited to see where this takes the World Cup. Holland is now my favorite player. I will be watching him through and through on Man City. I think that he is fantastic. He's got a great personality, and I feel like a lot of people. I'd love to run the stat of how many grossed followers that he got after this week or after this last month, because it had to have been skyrocketed, because he is an amazing athlete, somebody to continue to watch and track in the future, because he's a future phenom. 25 years old, I believe, as well. So young. But overall, really cool. Huge Messi fan, Mbappe, all that. I mean, it was really cool because it really did feel like a Legends tournament more than anything, because you had all the different teams, but you had that one guy that everybody's watching. I caught myself watching the one guy. The ball would be on the other side of the field, and you're just watching the one superstar kind of roam around and find different lanes. And it's a lot more creative than I thought. I would, just from a bird's eye view, it looks a lot more like basketball than football. A little bit more motion and just feel it out, but really cool. Lots of talent displayed across the board. But speaking of talent, you have the most talented team from last year, the Seattle Seahawks. They went up for bid what was that? About 3 months ago was the beginning of that conversation. We saw recently, let me get the exact stat. It was a group led by San Francisco 49ers limited partner, the Khosla venture group, has agreed to purchase the Seattle Seahawks for $9.6 billion. Yeah. And when we were first researching, it was really between two groups. It was between the former Celtics primary owner and the Khosla group. And the conversations was anywhere in that 9 to 11 billion, which is crazy. I mean, the fact that not more than 36 months ago, you saw the Commanders sell for $6 billion, a little over $6 billion. And now Paul Allen and the family who owned the Seattle Seahawks come off of a massive, massive season. Of course, we actually played them in the preseason. It was really cool because we got to practice against them. We were doing the hoops and all the different quarterback competition drills with Sam and Drew and Jalen Milroe and all those guys when I was with Green Bay. As I don't know if people remember that, but I was with Green Bay at the beginning of last season. Did not end with them. But it was cool to watch. I mean, the team that you kind of knew some of the guys. Chris Stoll, huge shout out to Chris Stoll. He's a former captain. Penn State didn't even mean to wear it today, but shout out to Chris Stoll and the entire team for getting that done this year. It was really cool to watch. Great team win. Great defense overall. But let's talk specifically about this sale, what it means to set the market here, and all the details of, I mean, buying a team for $9.6 billion is no small feat.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember a couple episodes back, we talked about it with the Knicks, and I want to say we talked about it with the Seahawks as well, where, okay, these championship winning teams now, what does that mean for the valuation of the company? And now we see it play out in real time, where they just topped the largest sale in the NFL by an extra $3 or so billion, which is,
boy, were we wrong.
Not a little amount of money. No, not a little amount of money at all. Obviously, there's a huge difference between $6 billion and $9 billion. So that's kind of interesting to see. Another kind of thing that we cannot gloss over is the fact that this was bought by a venture capitalist at heart, a guy that started a company called Sun Microsystems, which is an IT company, and then now is the co-founder of Khosla Ventures. Vinod Khosla is his name. He's the one that bought the team. I would love to see how that went down. I don't know if that was out of his pocket or through kind of the venture arm. I'd imagine there was probably a little bit of everything in there, but the fact that a venture capital group is now buying an NFL team is unheard of, and also just insane, especially we're a little biased because that's kind of the realm that we play in, but it's just fun to see how all of these different people, all these different families, what their backgrounds are, what they've started, how they got so successful to do so. And now we're seeing a guy in venture capital jumping into the NFL space for the second time, mind you. He had a minority stake and still does 49ers as well. So I will propose a question, Sean, because I'm curious. Do you have any insight into how that works, where you have a minority stake in one team but then own another team? Is there a conflict of interest? Does he have to sell the minority stake? I know that wasn't something that I had information heading into this on. Did he sell it off? Does he still have it? Is he able to still keep both? I don't know how that works, and I'd be interested to look into that if we're able to quickly. Do you have any?
I don't personally know if he had to sell it off. I'd have to imagine with only it says 3.1% stake, so I don't think that it is that crucial It's interesting. I mean, you're obviously rooting for the Seahawks if you own the team, but then, it's funny. You then would play the 49ers. You might have a little soft spot in your heart for the Niners if they do pull off a win against you, but
Here we go. I got the answer for
I,
you right here.
go for it.
No, Vinod Khosla cannot keep his stake in the 49ers. Following
Mm.
the announcement that he's investing, or obviously that he's buying the Seattle Seahawks, he now has to get rid of his 3.1 minority stake in the San Francisco 49ers. It is a league policy. The league strictly prohibits individuals or families from holding equity in multiple competing franchises. So there's our answer. Kind of figured that'd probably be the answer, but like you said, it is a small stake, so who knows if they were going to let him keep it. Obviously, that is a rule that is put in place for a reason. So again, really, really, really cool to see a venture capitalist jump into this space, buy the Super Bowl winning championship team. I mean, I'd love to hear the plans he has for them. I'd love to hear, how do you go from winning the Super Bowl to then creating to getting a new ownership group in? What is your plans as an owner? How do you say, okay, guys, we just won the Super Bowl. What's next? Do it again, obviously, but how do you do that? What are the plans to do so? Would love to be a fly on the wall for those conversations, but all in all, really unique kind of events that happened over the weekend with him buying the team.
Yeah, boy, would I want to be a fly on the wall. I don't know if anyone knows this about us. I know a few people definitely know this, but the North Star here, at least for myself, I know that Liam, I'm sure that we'd want to do it together. That would be a lot of fun, but 100%. But the Clifford family North Star is to own an NFL team. And the fact that we're running a venture firm in the sports world and looking to have extreme success. And now you see a venture capitalist with the largest purchase of an NFL team.
Crazy.
Boy, am I fired up. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
What an event. It's so cool. And to be honest with you, Liam, breaking this down, this is a venture capitalist. So you know how we are. We're all about the founders. We're all about the startups. This guy definitely lives, breathes startups and also the opportunity to create. So I'd have to imagine that the Seattle Seahawks, I mean, with the purchase, now you have a very unique opportunity to bring a startup type vibe to the team. And I think that it's really exciting because if you're a guy on that team, for people that don't know what a venture capitalist does, it is all about the founders. It's what can you do? How can you support them in every way, shape, or form? Financially, how can you support them mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually? All those different things go into play. And so the fact that now you have a venture capitalist owning a team, I would love to see what that ownership looks like. I would love to see what that day-to-day looks like, because nothing against Mr. Brown and our ownership here in Cincinnati. I think they do a great job, and I think that overall, the Cincinnati Bengals are a staple of the community, and it's a family-owned business. So it's a little bit different. It's very similar to Paul Allen and kind of how he went about his.
Yep.
But now you bring in somebody who has made it through venture specifically, and he's going to bring a different style, a different feel. And I'm going to be definitely in the ear of some of the Seahawks players. I cannot wait to hear how this goes and what the culture's like, because if it is like the startup culture, he's going to probably build from the ground up. He's probably going to go to, the players. He's going to go to the faculty and the staff and all the coaches and ask for opinions. I'd have to imagine that that's probably his game plan, is to do it the same way that he's ever ran a startup. Now, this is obviously a much larger startup. This is no startup. If I let me be clear, this is big boy ball right here. This is the National Football League. But if you take that same mentality all the way down and you allow yourself now to play in this game the same way that you would support your founders and treat everybody in that building the same, I think that you might see a lot of innovation coming out of Seattle. I think you might see a lot of opportunity and a lot of change when it comes to what it looks like from a day to day. So I am super bullish. I think that it does set the market. Liam, what's your thought on the $9 billion number? 9.6 to be exact. I mean, we were wrong. We did not think that the Super Bowl would change anything. I'd have to imagine that it did here in the conversations, right? You don't just go from a $6 billion sale to then a $9.6 billion sale over 50% in 6 months. So you have to be looking at it as a ginormous opportunity. I'd have to imagine also the bidding war was crazy. But how do you feel like it resets the market? How do you feel like it will change private equity in sports and also just ownership stacks in general moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's heading, it's only going to have to keep going up and up and continue to grow. I think when you look at investing in risk capital, call it, you invest in a team that's the best in the world as of last year, probably the least risky thing you could do at this time, specifically in sports when buying teams. So can't blame them for paying that much of a dollar amount to buy it. But at the same time, now what does that do for the rest of the NFL and team sales moving forward? I'd have to imagine that kind of sets the new floor, at least somewhat close to, if it's any bit of a winning team. Because now, like we said a few episodes ago, we were going back and forth on, does it truly matter? Does it truly change the valuation if you win the Super Bowl? Yes, slightly. But now we're seeing, no, not slightly. It actually basically triples it. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll continue to see how that goes, and I can't wait to see what the next team sale goes up for, and if it's anything close to that. And I hope it's not a Super Bowl winning champion, so we can kind of see what the difference is. But yeah, it sets kind of a new floor, in my opinion, and I think that numbers will continue to go up. It just depends on, okay, when does that stop? When do they stop going up, and when can it kind of settle and or go back down? But in the meantime, kudos to Coastal Ventures for redefining the game here with this one.
Now, do you think that they start to bring some startups to the table and start to scale some startups within the Seahawks organization? Do you think that's a part of their play here? Do you think that there's a broader scope that no one is being even told right now, where Coastal Ventures now, I mean, I know I would. I
I
know
think
personally that's what the role I would do, but
yes,
what is
yes,
your
and
thought?
yes and no. I think there will be. I mean, I know if he thinks any way, shape, or form like we do as a venture capitalist, you're constantly thinking about your startups. You're constantly thinking about your portfolio, the things you've invested in. Coastal Ventures has invested in DoorDash. They invested in OpenAI. They invested in Ramp. Tons and tons of unbelievable businesses. We're gonna see those probably all over the facility and all over the stadium from a marketing perspective. I'm sure he can get very creative on how to implement those things as well, creating some cool interactive ads with OpenAI and having DoorDash potentially be a huge presenting sponsor. Not saying I know any of this is going to happen, but it's just the way that I think he might be thinking. So 100%, and obviously those are not startups. There he might be bringing in some actual startups into the fold as well, and trying to help grow the team, or who knows? We play in the sports tech, sports health kind of world. He might be bringing some cool things to the table for the players as well, to help continue to kind of create an edge and find different ways to set themselves apart from these other teams.
Yeah, obviously you don't want to reinvent the wheel completely, but I do think that there's a very unique opportunity to use that marketing. I mean, we've talked about it numerous times on the show about why do you purchase a team? And I think that it's a platform, right? You're buying an established platform, one that is at the very top of the game in the current moment, the returning Super Bowl champions, and the world is your oyster. What do you want to do with the organization? What do you want to do with the city? Do you start to build around the city? Do you start to find different ways to add what you've done at Coastal Ventures and find new innovative ways to create? I mean, it really is as simple as that. I'd have to imagine if one team is going to implement AI before anybody,
Yeah.
it could probably be them. We'll see if Sam Altman's walking around the building here soon. If that does happen, we called it here first. I guarantee that we are the first ones in the world to call out some sort of collaboration with the founders and the Seattle
Yeah.
Seahawks. So if we do see that, you better believe there's going to be
I
a
want to
clip
see
of that.
that.
I'm calling it right now. I'm
The
actually going to go ahead and clip that one
Let's see
just internally for the pod.
what the poly market odds are of Sam Altman walking around with the Seahawks jersey here in the near future, maybe next season. We shall see. But
You never know. But so you go from the Super Bowl champions to now a whole nother conversation
yeah,
of building a team from absolute zero, the Las Vegas NBA auction. So the Las Vegas Jacks group, which is just, a billionaire group, is going in for an NBA expansion bid, announced on July 8th and then reinforced then on July 10th with some coverage. The leadership is really all over the place. A lot of former players
yep.
I'm seeing you have Vinny Del Negro, you have Jonathan Thomas, you have Jay Williams, you have tons of different guys on the cap table fighting for this team specifically in such a huge, monumental opportunity to capture a market that has not seen an NBA team yet. financing around an $8 billion bid with an asset target of 12.5 to 13 billion. Now, this is a little bit different as you look at the entirety of this build out, because it's not just the team. They see this as a real platform builder, not only to build the infrastructure of the team, and they want to redo everything. They want to build up a huge arena. They want to then obviously push the team forward and put them in the NBA. Competing bid right now is Thrive Capital. You got Kushner and Bob Iger pursuing a majority investment funded partly via their Thrive Eternal, a permanent capital vehicle with no set exit timeline. So definitely some competition here. Just a little bit of backdrop. So the Lakers in 2025, they had their $10 billion sale. The NBA average currently is at 5.51 billion. I do think that overall, it is a little surprising if you look at it, right? The NBA's already seen these numbers, these ginormous numbers. My guess is it's more of an international play. That would be my take of why. Not necessarily that the NFL or the NBA are better. I think that we could debate that, and we're obviously going to have our take. I obviously, no offense to all my NBA buddies, but the NFL is the heart and soul of this country. I mean, that's what people live for, the fall, baby. They live for the fall. But I will say we don't have the international push. We're trying to get there. I mean, like I've also said on this podcast numerous times, we went to Brazil. We're flying to Madrid this year. I've seen a lot when it comes to, and heard a lot of stories across the international waters, trying to get the NFL there. But the NBA is already there. They have a huge fan base across the entire world. But this is interesting, Liam. Where do you take this? How do you see a team in Las Vegas falling? Do you think that they expand here? Do you think that there's a real opportunity?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of opportunity. Obviously, one of the kind of most entertaining cities in the world when it comes to sports and entertainment specifically. I think there's a huge opportunity to put an NBA team there, that there's a gap. There's not an NBA team. Obviously, you have the Las Vegas Raiders, who've had success from a actual kind of franchise perspective, maybe not as much on the field yet so far, but they're doing well and continuing to grow. I think the big question kind of here is I know that the 12.5 billion is kind of the asset target and the bidding has started. What will that price ultimately end up looking like? Because in no way, shape, or form do I see this being fair if it ultimately ends up going over the sale of the $10 billion sale of the Lakers in 2025. Because
Right.
that's an established team that's been around for many years with tons and tons of legends and history behind it. You can't
To call a spade, potentially the greatest franchise. You could put them up there as one of the greatest franchises of all time.
Yes, you could argue that 100%.
Arguable. Yeah.
And to that point, in my eyes, you can't possibly then price a brand new team that you don't even know if it will work or if they will stay around beyond the Lakers or any other NBA team for that fact in general. So the number's crazy. I don't know if it's more of a PR play where they're trying to put a high number out there to start to ultimately up the bidding wars or what that kind of looks like. I don't see a world where it's anywhere close to 10 billion. I think it's fair to be on the low end of the billions, but because of the opportunity that Vegas brings and obviously not just basketball and a basketball team playing there, but then all of the other entertainment you can bring there, having more UFC fights within Vegas. I'm sure there's tons and tons of performers that could perform there. And I'm sure the list goes on and on of the plans that they have for once they actually do create this and build it and play there. But I just don't see a world where this team gets sold and ultimately bidded on for more than really any existing NBA team in my eyes. And I don't know if I'm crazy for saying that, but it is a crazy number. And I am not sure what the idea was. I think maybe it could be a kind of a opening PR play to where let's put it high and have the bidding go up. But I don't know. I don't personally agree with it. I do agree with, yes, 100%. Let's get a team in Vegas. Why not? It'd be great for the sport. It'd be great for entertainment. But the price is a little bit outlandish in my opinion. Sean, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a high price. And I think, to your point, I don't know if it's as much the bidding war. It might be more so to scare people off. Like, this is the price. This is what you have to play in. And then if it comes down, it comes down. That's probably what they want. But I think that they're trying to do two things. I think they're trying to scare some people off and try to get some of these potential other owners away from the table and not, create this moat that it's just too large for you. And then secondly, I think that they're trying to just have a real conversation with the NBA. I mean, in order to make a new team, I'd have to imagine that conversation with the entire governance of the NBA has to be pretty drawn out. And if you're not coming with serious backing, I don't see a world where you can even start that conversation. So I'd have to imagine that's a huge piece of it. But I will say, I think the coolest piece of this whole thing is the fact we talk about it all the time. What do we end every single podcast with, right? From playing the game to owning a piece of it. This is Playbooks and Portfolios.
Yep.
Now you're seeing yet again another example of two, not one, but two guys that have played in the game, Vinny Del Negro and Jay Williams, both on the cap stack of potentially an NBA team. It's monumental for players. It does give us a North Star yet again. It just gives people a lot of hope of what the future is. Not like I would say probably a majority of the guys across all the leagues don't really have interest in this, including, the women's side as well. But I do think that this is really cool just in general. The fact that you can do anything you want, using sports as your platform. And I think Jay Williams is the perfect, person to talk about on it, right? He goes from Duke, he then goes to the Chicago Bulls, and then he's a huge television analyst. And now, putting this on his resume, I think of him, I think of Tom Brady, I think of a lot of the guys that are making these plays. So that's really the end all be all for me. I'm excited to see how that dynamic plays out.
I agree. I think it'd be good for the sport. Getting a team in Vegas obviously would be great for the NBA. It's one of the coolest places to have teams, to have events, to have entertainment. Why not add to it? I'm in full agreement. Sean, before we transition to the last topic, I would be
well,
do you have another
I
point?
was also
Go ahead.
I have one more point on that too. So when I went and we played, it was Thanksgiving night. Thanksgiving, I believe. But we played a Monday night football game. Long story short, I know it was a Monday night football game in Vegas, my rookie year when I was in Green Bay. It was unbelievable.
I bet.
So cool. And it was really, I was kind of under the impression that it was going to be very similar to LA, like the Rams, where they're going on silent cadence because you have every single fan from the opposing team using this as an excuse to fly to LA and have a weekend where you could go to the game and then kind of go around. That's ultimately why you don't see as many LA Rams fans there, because you're just getting a swarm of different people from the opposing team. But Vegas was bought in, man. It was loud the entire game. It was a party. They had a DJ going the entire game, and it was rocking.
Yeah.
So you talk about that for the NFL. I would love to see what the NBA has to offer. I think that especially now in all these conversations of the newest innovations of these venues and these teams, I think you have a really a unique opportunity to set a new precedent for how this thing looks, and putting it in Vegas, the hotbed of travel and tourism. I think that's a huge winner. I don't know where you're putting it, to be honest with you, because that is a cluttered. I've been to Vegas now, boy, way too many times, at least 4 or 5, and I would say that overall it is a lot.
Yeah.
There's not much room there anymore, but wherever they put it, it would definitely drive a lot of value to not only the team, but also the surrounding businesses trying to win. So I'm rooting for it. I think expansion is always good for sports, especially in cool cities.
100% agree. And speaking of cool cities, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up UFC card over the weekend. Man, what an unbelievable build up to these fights. What an unbelievable, honestly, few fights leading up to the McGregor fight. And then what a disappointment. I felt genuinely bad watching that fight happen. I felt bad for Conor McGregor. I felt bad for the sport in general as well. It just sucked. You hate seeing something get so hyped up. A guy that's been out of the sport, that honestly was the face of the sport and made it big, in my opinion, for a really long time, to then come back after 5 years and then ultimately have it be ended in whatever it was, 70 seconds, kind of through just a brutal kick that landed weird. Just sucks. But I just wanted to bring that up and say that it will be interesting to see how the UFC bounces back from that.
So that's my question.
Yeah.
I want you to. I have my take for sure, but I think that there's two different groups that you got to talk about here. where does the UFC go from here when it comes to allowing these mega events to be had with these superstars, but they're older,
Yeah,
right? This is combat sports, a way different bear than Phillip Rivers coming back for a 2-game stint with the Indianapolis Colts at the back end of a season, right? You could play. The sad part, I hate to say it, but playing quarterback, Phillip Rivers showed that you could take a few years off, and if you're a kick-ass quarterback, you can come in and stand in the pocket strong and make plays. It is what it is. It's violent. Don't get me wrong. Football is extremely violent, and I think that I'm sure that all my O-line buddies, our D-line buddies, all the guys that get physical in the box, I would have to imagine they would not agree that you could take a stint. But sadly, in my position, I cannot act like I'm in the trenches with everybody. You could play quarterback. But when it comes to combat sports, where does the UFC now go in the conversations? And then also, do you shut McGregor? I mean, he's got
I
it.
know.
I'll give my take real quick. It's gonna be short. You shut it down. You can't go back to it. You cannot let him back in the ring. There's no chance
Yeah.
because you know what you're gonna get. You're gonna get a huge spectacle yet again with a very high probability of an injury or something really small that completely takes away from the entirety, because now you have all these, I mean, you have the people that went to the event extremely disappointed. The betting markets
Oh man.
shafted. I mean,
Yeah.
crazy, right? So what's your thought? How do they go from here?
It's gonna all come down to how they rebound. I mean, the next card needs to be really impressive. There needs to be some huge fights. Maybe get some young stars on there that can gain a bunch of eyeballs. I mean, there's a lot of people young in the league. I mean, I gotta shout out Bo Nickel. Would love to see him on the next card potentially if it's not too early. I know he just fought on the White House card, but and then I know whatever it was Saturday night, Steven, I'm blanking on his name. Holy cow! But the guy from Minnesota, the heavyweight, he was on the undercard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, guy destroyed the dude he went up against. So I think having some young talent, getting the name out there, getting those people going. Because to your point, Sean, of the age piece, I don't think it's as much the age. Like Justin Gaethje's 37, Conor McGregor's 37. Justin Gaethje's the best in the world right now after what he just did to Ilya Poirier. But I think it's,
Bold statement.
I mean, he beat the number one fighter and in a unbelievable fashion. So it's hard to say that he's not. Plus, he's an American, which I love.
Yeah.
Having those guys at the top of the UFC, which is always cool. But I will say this. It just speaks to the fact that when you play a sport and you decide to take multiple years off, like coming back into the ring against high performing athletes, a guy like Max Holloway, I would have loved to see. I just really honestly would have loved to see how that fight would have played out, because the way Max Holloway honestly started as well, like the dude was throwing punches. I would think that would have been a bloodbath, and it might not have gone in Conor McGregor's favor. So it just goes to the point where, like, you can't expect it, no matter who you are, no matter how good you've been in the past. You can't take 5 years off and come back. Do you shut them down? Probably. Will the UFC be tempted to not because they know it'll fill seats? Also probably. So, but to answer your question, where do you go next? I think creating an awesome card with maybe some young up and coming athletes that people know and have their eyes on to ultimately kind of get the sport back on the right track. Also start to build some of those young and up and coming stars to continue to grow the UFC, because ultimately we all know that the UFC is great and all, but it kind of comes down to the actual fighters and what they're going to do. Because if they run out of good fighters and people that are putting on a performance, their business starts to go south. I don't think that'll happen. I want to make that very clear. I love the UFC.
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say you got Islam, you have
No,
Sean Strickland as
100%.
controversial as he is. You have Volk, you got Peter Yan, you
Yeah,
got Gaethje. I mean, there's a lot of heavy hitters right now that are playing in their prime.
100%. But just sucked to see it. Like I said, felt bad for McGregor, felt bad for the fans. But will be interesting to see how they bounce back and see how well they do it.
You know what was interesting? I was up late night Claude coding that night after the fight. You know, things you don't hear from most NFL quarterbacks, but that's just what I enjoy doing. But anyways, I caught myself. I saw on the Instagram live that the UFC was going live with their pressers. I was listening in. Really cool to hear how Dana operates, because you know what was really interesting? I mean, he deflects every question that has to do with the future. I mean, very quickly. So put that to the side. But you know what he was the most pissed off about? He was most pissed off about in the interview they were going across all the
Yeah,
different
I saw this.
celebrities.
Yep.
And so I was watching that live, and he was so mad that they were that at Paramount, I believe, for missing the mark, and the whole team for
Yeah.
missing the mark, and it seemed like his leadership in that moment was crucial because it's you see why certain people in little moments, right? Because it's not every like you're not going to see it every single day, especially when somebody's consistent and the same every single day. It'll kind of blend every once in a while. But there are moments where you can see what greatness looks like from a leadership position. And Dana absolutely rocked the team, it sounds like, for
I'm sure he did.
missing the boat on that.
Yeah,
So,
and what that goes back to, and all successful people, I mean, we've been able to surround ourselves by the highest performing athletes, by unbelievable entrepreneurs and people that have had exits and success. What that reminded me of was control the things you can control. And ultimately,
mm,
you can control what you're popping up and how you're describing the people that are in the audience. In his case, these celebrities where they pop up the names and it was the wrong name, clearly the wrong name. And he jumped his team for that. And as he should, because that's something they can control. What they can't control is Conor McGregor doing a leg kick and ultimately landing on it weird and whatever, tearing his ACL.
yeah.
It's going to happen. So kudos to him for focusing on the things he can control, not taking away kind of like he didn't want to dive into it because he didn't have answers yet. And on top of that, like I said, he couldn't control it. So a cool, really, really unique kind of insight and look at leadership from one of the best entrepreneurs in our time, of somebody that's taken UFC from basically nothing, where it's banned in multiple states and countries, to then now where it's at today. An awesome kind of little thing that he did, but ultimately the reason that he's had success.
Yeah, 100%. Moving to completely different topic, but definitely setting the market. I mean, that's the theme of this entire podcast, as I'm really realizing it is what is the market set at? And right now, the underpriced surface, as we see it, the Big 12 times Monster Energy with a $20 million a year commitment to the conference, about $1 million per school across 16 schools. All Big 12 football and men's and women's basketball teams are going to wear these co-branded jersey patches with Monster on it, plus also field court branding, and the first conference-wide jersey patch deal since the NCAA began allowing sponsorships. There's some backlash, a little bit of backlash. Amanda Kristovich, Amanda Kristovich from Front Office Sports was actually quoted as saying it's too cheap. I probably agree with that, right? You have these NBA single team patches going for $5 to $20 million a year, and now you have these marquee college football programs that, if you go solo, I'd have to imagine that the best negotiators on your staff are going to be able to get a better price than $1 million a year. It's definitely the trade-off for that uniformity and kind of the collective bargaining across the conference level specifically. But with the NIL ecosystem absolutely booming, it reported $2.7 billion in 2026 and storming up the charts. The conference is not utilizing their platform. I mean, do you agree with the pricing here? I mean, I definitely don't. I think that there's way more to be had. Do you think that this was the right move? How did this happen? Like,
Yeah.
what? I feel like this is kind of a failure, to be honest with you, to set the
I,
market.
I don't love it. I really don't, to be honest with you. I think if you're gonna do it, it needs to be something big. I'm almost positive. I don't know if it's exclusive, because then the next day Kansas went out and also did something very similar and did a deal with XRP, the crypto company. So I
I
just,
missed that.
yeah, the thing that's kind of just worries me with all of this is the fact that with NIL, NIL is unbelievable. It's awesome. We've talked about this before, but then it gets to a point where I would hate to see the college football tradition go away, because we start just kind of slapping all these different logos all over it, especially when you have like Penn State's jersey, for example. Maybe I'm a little biased, but like clean, the navy and the white, like it's a staple of college football, and now you're gonna have a big, not necessarily in this case, but maybe a big Monster Energy logo on the front of it. It's just a little weird to me, and maybe it's just because we played and we didn't have that, and it's gonna take some time to come around to. So I guess that's my feelings put into it. But then, feelings aside, when you break down the deal, I think it is a little bit undervalued. When you look at, like you said, NBA teams with what they charge for patches, it's a lot more than what $1 million per school is in this case with Monster Energy. So I think they're setting the floor kind of low. which is kind of interesting because what does that mean then for the rest of college football? If other college football teams want to get involved in this, they can get involved probably at a pretty cheap price, which then also, to my points of kind of how I feel about it, scares me for, okay, how many logos are going to be slapped on these jerseys? What's it going to look like? Is it going to be kind of just, hey, almost like we saw at the beginning of NIL, where it was a lot of money grabbing? I hope that doesn't start to happen when you bring in kind of these co-branded rights deals into college football. So long story short, I don't love it. We'll see what happens. It's going to definitely it's definitely going to take some getting used to for sure, though, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, I also believe that they definitely did it for the smaller schools, right? Because if you were doing it for Texas Tech, right, for a perfect example, who's coming off a college football playoff run, their mark is going to be extremely high. But then you go to I'll use I won't even use the Bearcats, but like you use, let's say, Kansas, right? We already mentioned them. Not having the best years the past couple of years, right? They have not played great football. $1 million is probably the max that they'd be able to get. So it's the collective bargaining across the board. You see it in every sport.
So, well, and then in that light, though, I know we talk about it all the time of backing the athletes, having the athletes back as athletes. $20 million is still a lot of money, and the players won't see any of that. I know that might stir the pot a little bit because players are already making a bunch of money, but
well, hold your horses there. They won't see any of that is a bold statement. They're already, so now we're getting $20.5 million from the House settlement. That's agreed upon, right? Everybody's making, and just so you remember, and especially for me, you saw the back end of it. I saw none of it. We weren't getting jack shit not too long ago, and now,
see my point.
I'm taking the point of $20 million is to cover now. I mean, they got to rack it in somehow, some way. So I don't hate the play of.
That's going to the conference as a whole, though.
Well, it's going to every school, though. It's distributed across all the schools.
It says $20 million a year to the conference, $1 million a year
per school.
So the $1 million is going to the schools.
Yeah, that's going to the school too.
That's like one-star player, which is crazy.
That is right. Yeah.
So
it's a long way to go. It's a long way to go.
So I guess we kind of just proved our point. Underpriced. It's realistically
underpriced. Yes. There you go. I think that's exactly the point. I'm glad that we could have a quick debate there, because we ultimately came to the final answer. The fact that we're paying only $1 million to put a logo for the entire year. I mean, you're telling me now that if one of these teams make the national championship, which gets millions of eyeballs, now Monster Energy bought that single patch for $1 million. What
a steal.
What a steal. Let's rename this segment as the biggest steal in college football and basketball history. Actually, what are we talking about?
That is crazy. I wonder why Monster chose to go after the Big 12 too. Maybe they put it out to all leagues and then or all conferences and then Big 12.
Oh, you know why? Because I guarantee the Big 10 and the SEC, I want the team to blurt this out of here, but they probably said.
Yeah, they probably did.
They probably did.
But
I 100% did. I mean, now that I'm really piecing this whole thing together, thank you for the discussion. We haven't done this on a podcast. We usually come in and have a thought and are able to riff.
Yeah, no.
I'll tell you what, I'm kind of pissed.
Yeah. It is actually
the fact
really crazy when I think about it.
That is crazy.
Yeah, in light of the Big 12 and partnering with Monster Energy, to wrap up today's episode, we always like to play a game here. We're throwing that in as a segment. I got a fun game for us today, and Sean, it's your turn. Last week we did the ranking.
I got no idea what's coming, people, so hold your horses.
We're doing another blind ranking, and it's going to be in light of the Big 12 partnering with Monster Energy. So what we're going to do is I'm going to name a team, a college football team, and you have just a few seconds to then blurt out whatever logo you think would fit perfectly on that team, company/logo. And when you're ready, we can start. So wait,
let me get this clear. I'm not ranking anything. You're gonna name me a team, and I'm just gonna give you what I think would be the best logo to put on that jersey if I had to.
Yep, we're gonna name a team
for hopefully a price over $1 million.
Ideally, yes, that'd be nice.
Ideally,
yeah, that would probably help the school and the players and the organization as a whole. But yes, I'll name the team. And then your answer will be whatever the logo is that you think would fit best on that jersey, whether it's look, reasoning, geography, location, whatever it is. You got your answers dialed in here, which they are blind, so maybe you don't. But here we go.
Okay.
First one is Colorado.
Colorado. Hold on. I also, can I get a second too? I need the mascot. Like I need to ensure what the mascot is, I feel like too. Like that's where my head's going. So it's what even is Colorado's mascot? University of Colorado's mascot.
It's Ralphie the Buffalo.
Okay. Hot start. I mean, a Buffalo Wild Wings. Put
Easy.
it on there. Easy layup. Thank you. Okay, so so we're gonna go with we're gonna just put a big old drumstick on the patch.
Is that what you'd pick? A big old drumstick?
I would do a drumstick. That would be electric.
That would be kind of cool, and hopefully it's for more than $1 million. Next, Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Ooh, I would hope this would be a very, very unique opportunity to shout out to all the Catholics out there. I think the Catholic Church as a whole should sponsor the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and throw up a big cross on the jersey. That
cool.
I would be all in on that one. Very cool.
The Pope involved there, that would be a unique deal.
He is an American. He's from Philadelphia, so he might be a college football fan. I'd be surprised if he's not, and that might be in the cards. We might need to call some people.
All right, so we've got Colorado, Buffalo Wild Wings. We've got Notre Dame, the Catholic Church. At number 3, we've got BYU Cougars.
BYU Cougars, okay. Playing off a little bit of the Mormon piece of this.
Which, mind you, while you think, side note, interesting that Monster Energy is now partnered with the Big 12, where Mormons don't drink caffeine. So I don't know how that'll kind of go over well with the...
Oh, no. Do they not drink caffeine? What do you mean by that? They absolutely. You've not watched The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
I actually haven't. I have not. I know my girlfriend has, but I have not dove into that. Do they drink caffeine? I thought that was against it.
They very much do. Yeah. I just want to make sure that I'm saying this right. Yeah, absolutely. It would be Swig, which is a huge company founded specifically, I believe, let me get this right. I think it's a Utah base. Yeah, birthplace in Utah. They call it the dirty soda, but it's quite literally just soda. And you're just putting, I guess, on the patch.
Brand, it's its own soda brand. Is this a specific
Swig? Yeah, you drive up, you go right up to the front. Huh. You go just like, and you order whatever concoction of soda that you want. You got to watch the show. I am not a huge fan of it personally. No offense to everybody on that show. It just doesn't suit my fancy personally. But I'll walk into the room and that'll be on every once in a while or whenever it airs. And I've caught myself watching a few episodes, I must say. Okay. But yeah, Swig and
cool.
Yeah, the BYU Cougars. That'd be great.
Answer. All right, so to recap, Colorado, we've got Buffalo Wild Wings. Notre Dame, we've got the Catholic Church. BYU, we've got Swig. Coming in at number 4 is the Cincinnati Bearcats, our hometown team.
Skyline Chili. That's the easiest one. That is so fast. And I would put a 3-way on the jersey.
You wouldn't put a chili cheese dog?
I mean, I would personally put a coney on that, but I mean,
maybe they could have the players pick which their favorite is, and that's what you get on your jersey. That'd be kind of
wow. Now we're getting creative. So you're telling me that every player has to make the decision of what their skyline order is, and then they put that on the patch.
That would be kind of cool. That'd be unique.
That would be insane.
All right, we got Colorado, we got Buffalo Wild Wings, Notre Dame, the Catholic Church, BYU, Swig, Cincinnati Bearcats, obviously Skyline Chili, and coming in at number 5 is our team, Penn State Nittany Lions.
Oh man, obviously the correct answer here for all the Penn Staters listening and watching this podcast is to leave the thing alone. Okay, it's to leave the jersey alone. So I must say that would never want to see anything on there. Penn State Nittany Lions logo. I'd probably, you know what I'm gonna do here? I'm gonna somehow, some way, we're gonna raise $1 million.
Okay,
and we're gonna throw a Champs logo on that thing. And we're gonna win every game.
I don't hate it. I really don't. We have the affinity to Champs.
I have no national sponsorship for probably Utz. No, that's a Pittsburgh thing. I mean, that's where it's Pittsburgh more. Philly would be pissed.
Stick to the gut. Champs. I'm all for it.
I just go. You're in State College, Pennsylvania, man. It's the heart and soul. I have no idea. I'd just have to go with champs, I guess, and just
Shout out
throw
to
the bars logo on there.
You never know.
There's got to be a conflict of interest there, but
Potential.
hopefully my Penn Staters appreciate that one.
Hey, they sell food. That's a restaurant. They could get it on there. So coming in at the final list, we've got Colorado, we've got Buffalo Wild Wings logo, Notre Dame, you've got the Catholic Church, BYU, you've got Twig, Cincinnati, you've got Skyline, and Penn State coming in at the big number 5 with champs as their logo. This was a fun one. Again, blind ranking. Sean had no idea what I was about to say, so good job, Sean. But
Thanks.
we will continue these games in every episode and get more creative with them as we go. But in light of the Big 12 and Monster partnership, that is whatever we want to coin that game was. But that one was a fun one.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's a great segment because we are 56 minutes. This is the longest episode we've definitely had. So the pattern is very clear across all of the stories that we've had, right? The Seahawks have completely reset the market. The Las Vegas team that doesn't exist currently is potentially worth $12.5 billion. And there aren't even a thought of what's going to happen with them. And the Big 12 sold every jersey in the conference in a very controversial debate today and probably sold it pretty cheap. So there is a lot to talk about in the sports industry. We're really excited to continue to watch and see how this thing goes. It's going to be all about finding the ceiling if you want, but we'll be down here buying the floor. That's for sure in our venture firm. Please like, subscribe, follow. We are launched on YouTube, so we are trying to get a big YouTube presence. We'll definitely be pushing it a lot more there. Just wanted to specifically shout out that if you've listened for almost an hour and you don't subscribe to our YouTube, if you're at this point and you do not hit the subscribe button on YouTube, I will personally seek you out and be mad. But from playing the game to owning a piece of it, this is Sean and Liam Clifford, your hosts, Playbooks and Portfolios. We will see you next week. Peace out.